main gallery, and it is beautiful. Absolutely incredible ceramics, painting, printmaking, just the creative life of a single person. It's pretty amazing. We've also, on a national level, do Teeth and Glance Deep Gloss by Carl Fritsch and Gavin Hipkins, two of the country's leading artists. Carl Fritsch actually on an international level is one of the most famous contemporary jewellers in the world, and we're showcasing a body of work that they've worked on for the last decade, and we're the first public gallery to show their work, which I think is a big indication of the respect that nationally we have as an organisation. So I think we're really, from the side of exhibitions, going from strength to strength. Some really great exhibitions. I'm also happy that we are on track with our KPIs for the term. I also want to quickly, it's not technically part of this report, but I wanted to quickly mention the fact that I've recently come back from our sister city in Japan, Hatsukaichi, where Dame Robin White is opening up a major exhibition with her Japanese collaborator from there, Taiko Ogawa. A lot of you will know Taiko's work. Some of it's downstairs, and when she was here a couple of years ago, she created a work at Aratoi. Their practice is based on their mutual desire for peace. I went to represent the Wairarapa arts community, and I have to say it's had already some really fruitful results. We're getting that exhibition back to Aratoi really quickly. We managed to jump on it, and it's going to be opening at the end of June, which will time for it being on display while we have students from Hatsukaichi in Masterton, and also for the 80th anniversary of the bombing of Hiroshima. And I think that has it's going to be a really important time for eyes to be on Masterton and the connection that the Wairarapa has to World War II and Japan. I think it's going to be a really incredible opportunity for us to do some quite exciting things. Also wonderful that a work that was created during the opening of that event has been, the artists have decided to gift to Aratoi and the people of Masterton. So really worthwhile being there. Quickly wanted to hand something over to Gary. The Mayor gave me gifts to give to Masterton District Council, and I also gave a gift which I hope you don't mind. I said it was from everyone in Masterton, including all of you. So I didn't think you'd mind me using your names as part of it.
Thank you very much, sir.
Can I get a photo? Gary, I'll get a photo for you. For your favourite website.
Yeah. What was that?
BBC.
Oh, I thought it was Master Matters.
That's always the winner.
So yeah, we're doing exciting things. The economic environment is tough, but we're really proactively out there working towards building our funding structures. So, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Rex.
Thanks, Sarah. Great to hear about your trip. Just a question. You note in your report that one of the difficult costs is heating. Mm-hmm. And I know that you did a solar panel installation, so yep. I'd just like to know how that's working out.
It is making a massive difference, but the base level of it doesn't cover all of the power that we use. And so because the base levels of, especially over this winter, they were quite inflated, or this last winter, there were some quite high costs that were coming through. It just blew out what we had expected from the past of what the solar energy had done for our baseline power costs. So we're factoring that into our new annual budget, that power is going to increase.
Okay, so it hasn't contributed to any savings?
It has, but because we've had it for a few years, we adjusted our budget in accordance to what we expected those savings to be, and what we had adjusted it to wasn't quite enough, because the baseline just went up higher than we expected it to.
Prices have gone up anyway.
Yeah, that's what's caught us out. That we always build in a little bit of movement for that, but it was just more than we had expected.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? We've got Councillor Marama and then Councillor Goodwin.
Just wondering what have you got?
No, I said Councillor Marama first, and then
Oh, sorry.
Councillor Goodwin.
Thank you for your report. I noticed that you mentioned the Robin Kua exhibition.
Yeah.
It's travelling New Zealand. Is
It-
it coming to Masterton?
It is. We got it for summer. We snuck in there and made sure that we got it for the summer months so that it would get a lot of people coming in and seeing it. Where we've got a lot of, especially our tamariki, who can come with their parents and their grandparents. We wanted to make sure that we had lots of eyes on it. We're very excited.
Now, Councillor Goodwin.
Just wondering what history you've got coming up.
History exhibitions. We have an exhibition coming up called Let's Have a Party, which looks at objects from our collection that deal with sort of domestic, sort of tablecloths, tea parties, dresses, things from the history of Masterton and the Wairarapa that are on the side of this more domestic histories. And that's one of them. We've also got an exhibition of kete coming up in the winter months, an exhibition of Māori tools and the history of tool making and the using of tools rather than weapons. So often taonga gets put into especially carved taonga gets put into the realm of weapons. We wanted to do tools. And we have the 100-year anniversary of transit as a big exhibition over our summer months as well.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
So if we go to the agenda on page 37, we have a recommendation there. Do I have a mover for the recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Beck. Seconded, Councillor Stella. Any further discussion? All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. As against, carried. Next items 5.3, destination Wairarapa on page 41. Are you presenting, are you, Robin?
I'll just say a couple of words and then Deanna's going to do all the work. Great Kaiora, good to be here, and I just want to make a comment. This summer has been quite an interesting summer for tourism. We certainly noticed quite a shift in internationals coming in, and we'll talk about that later on. There's been a lot of people from Europe coming in, which is really good. So a bit quite encouraging for the future. So I'll hand over to Anna.
Thank you, Anna.
Kia ora koutou katoa. Yes, just to reiterate what Robin said, domestic tourism still is a bit soft. We're not the only ones. And the figures that we've seen from the last quarter, I think in accommodation nights, only Wanganui and Milford, Fiordland rather, they had a slight increase in accommodation nights. Everybody else saw a decrease. Nothing's changed really. But there's a figure that I have never seen and probably never will see again for international spend, and that was that Wairarapa was the number one in the country in terms of growth from February last year to this year. Now, it's off a small base, but we'll take it. It's the first time I've seen our name sort of pop up in the MB sort of stats analysis like that, so I took a little moment to go, yay! Our idea or our strategy of building resilience around international tourists is working. It is driven absolutely by dark skies and wine and food tourism, the classic New Zealand wine trail. So rest assured, your progress in achieving dark skies accreditation is having an effect and will have a greater effect provided we continue on the pathway that we're heading down. I just wanted to touch on also that trade market. Now, I can't remember whether I've actually described to you how complicated the pipeline for international tourism is. It's long. It takes a long time, but the benefits are certainly well worth it. If you were going to Vietnam, you'd go down to, say, Travel Centre. There'll be a brochure sitting there on Vietnam, and you go through different itineraries, 10 days, Hanoi, wherever you wanted to go to. You pick one out and they say, you know, have a meal here, go to this place, take the bus, do whatever you're going to do. That is driven by what's called the wholesale market. So in New Zealand, Travel Centre, there will be Travel Centre being the wholesaler. They put these brochures together to promote to us, to encourage us to go travel overseas. In Vietnam, there'll be an inbound operator on the ground who works in conjunction with Travel Centre. And they're the people who, on the ground, they know how long it takes to get from one city to the other. Are the buses leaving on time? Where are the good restaurants to go to? What are the extra activities? And they advise the wholesaler who pulls these brochures together and ultimately creates the partnership between operators, how it's all going to fit together. So when you translate that back to New Zealand, at the moment, this week is Trends. That's the wholesale international big trade show that's happening in Rotorua. We went last year, and Transit's there currently this year, flying the flag for transport, which is fantastic. We're not able to afford to go every year. It's very expensive to be there, but we hope that every second year as a region we will be there. There's also the inbound meeting. So that's making sure that we have really strong relationships with those people on the ground who actually know what's going on. And they're the ones who are in the ears of the wholesalers going, you know, you really should be doing this, or this is what's trending, or this is what's cool, and this is what's not. And this is where you would have seen in our report that we did, it's like a speed dating exercise in Auckland over the course of 2 days. All the RTOs met with roughly 70 inbound operators, and you have 12-minute meetings. And in that 12 minutes, you have to do your elevator pitch. Why to come to Wairarapa? What operators are here? Who are trade ready? So those people who are ready to partner with these wholesalers, and who are Qualmarked, which is the Tourism New Zealand assurance, safety assurance, quality assurance mark. It's really important. That's how you get international travellers to be in this space and be seen. And so Barb and I were up there, and we worked very hard to make sure that everybody knew about us and what we had going on. In previous years, I found myself doing the big sales pitch, you know, and rushing up to people and say, did you know about Wairarapa? And they'd go, oh yes, or is that somewhere north of Christchurch, or oh no, you know, and school them on where it is. This year the tide had turned, and people were coming to me and they were asking me, I've heard about Wairarapa, there's some dark sky stuff going on, what about the food and wine tourism? How easy is it to get there? The tide is changing, and people are recognising what's going on, what we have here to offer, and what's awesome to come and visit, whether you're a domestic tourist, but more importantly, because we're trying to build that resilience in international tourists. International tourists, they stay longer and they spend more. Remembering the reason why we're doing this is because when there's an economic environment that's not necessarily ideal here in New Zealand, which we're going through currently, domestic tourists aren't travelling. So we want more international travellers to help fill that space. And then on the flip side, when COVID happened, domestic tourists, they kept us afloat. We need to build the balance, because at the moment it sits like that. So successful, great, we're working hard, but there is the good old supply and demand issue. And we all know that from whatever business that you're working in. If I'm out there talking about the supply or marketing of dark sky, wine and food, we need to, creating the demand, we need to make sure the supply is under there. And I had the pleasure of presenting to the Dark Skies Capability course just before Easter to a room full of very enthusiastic potential trade partners, people who are ready in that space. And it's exciting to see. Matt and I have had a number of conversations about this and how we make sure that those businesses continue down the pipeline. Of that group, I've already spoken to about 3 of them and their interest and how they can market their business. But there is a little gap there, which is kind of the one-on-one product development side, which that qualmark, that's quite specialised work that really gives them the confidence to operate in the international market. We just need to nail that little one, and I think we'll be well on the road. And saying that, it's looking good, the environment's looking good, the demand is being created welcomely. So any questions? Go ahead.
Questions? So David, thank you.
Annie, you mentioned about Auckland with the tourists. Do you think if we had a regular airline down here that would help us? And the other question is, when they get here, we really haven't got enough quality accommodation for them here in Masterton, so there's room for an airline and perhaps a new hotel. Would you agree with that?
With regards to the airline, from a tourism perspective, maybe in the future, but not now. Tourism is not going to be the thing that keeps that airline coming in and out of Masterton. It will be business. The reason I say that is because, going back to my point about how long it takes to get into the international market and create change or create awareness. And at the moment, we have struggled to get people off State Highway 1 onto State Highway 2 to travel to the Wairarapa. Changing the flight pattern of people from international markets from flying to Auckland into Wellington or any of the other areas or small regional places is going to take time and investment. And although in time it may, I'm not even going to put a time definition in years, it'll be years before that pattern would change. In terms of quality accommodation, size of the cake gets bigger, your slice gets bigger. It's always, the more that we have, the better it will be.
So motorhomes would be the way people are getting here.
Yeah, and I've done a little motorhomes, also Airbnb. Yeah, we don't get the stats on Airbnb, but I suspect, so when I was looking at the accommodation data, internationals were up in bed nights, which is great, but not significantly. So the increase in spend is that there's less internationals coming and they're spending more, or is it that there are more internationals coming but they're not finding accommodation, so they're going, commercial accommodation that we can measure, so are they going Airbnb way? That would be an interesting report or research to do, I think.
Can I just get another thing from my personal experience, because we're running a B&B, is a lot of people are coming, the international ones are coming for one night because they want to keep moving. It's a real hassle for us. We'd rather them stay longer, but you won't get them if you make it a 2-night stay. You just have to accept it. The other thing that's very interesting, we get a lot of people coming off the boat straight to Masterton, going missing out on times. So I think that's a good trend, and it is quite strong. It's amazing how many people do that.
The magic route for tourism was always, or has always been, and continues to be actually, is Auckland. If you're driving, you fly into Auckland and you drive Rotorua, Taupo, down State Highway 1 onto Wellington. You completely miss out State Highway 2. To get them to flip over and travel, this is where we bring in the Case of New Zealand Wine Trail, to cover 80% of New Zealand's wine growing area. Flip over if you've got any interest in wine and food, do that, and it takes you into Wellington. Far more interesting for those people who like to travel with wine and food, and that is a great way to promote off-peak travel. You don't have to do wine and food in the middle of summer. There's plenty of nice wine and food eating experiences in autumn and spring as well.
Councillor Tim, thank you.
With the just that State Highway 1 thing, do you think, are you anticipating any decline in numbers when people can, when you get to Woodville, when you turn left, so
Yeah.
everyone's been doing it for a few years.
Yeah.
Now a lot of them just keep going
Yeah.
towards the party.
I have huge concern with that. And I think for a while back, was something that I regularly mentioned. Maybe it was not within this particular group of councillors, but certainly in the early days. It is a concern because to get from here, if you're going from Wellington to Hawke's Bay, so much faster. Not necessarily interesting, but to go up the other side and then through, and they're extending that highway from Wellington out and Otaki and then just go over to Woodville. Why wouldn't you? If you're off to Hawke's Bay for the weekend, it's quick. Whereas we actually want them to come through the Wairarapa and stop and go, hey, this is kind of cool. If they're not already staying here, we want them to stop, spend some time and go, well, maybe I'll come here next time. And then back the other way as well. If you're in Hawke's Bay and you're rushing to get the ferry, would it be easier and faster just to simply cut across and down? It makes me very nervous.
Yeah, Masterton Court, not going to help either, that's what focus.
That's what you're referring to, isn't it? The new...
Yeah, that's what I mean.
The biggest problem is Google Maps. If they plug it into the Google Map,
Of course, yeah.
that's your view.
Okay, thank you. Any other councillor Goodwin?
So with the dark skies, do you get a boost, like Thursday night, supposedly the meteor show? So is there a whole influx of bookings for Thursday night?
I don't know because I'm not an operator. I'm not sure. Have you heard whether there's been some...
Up there.
Yeah.
So having spoken to Sam and Hari, who run Milky Way Kiwi out at Ponatahi, they said with internationals, those people were booking 6 months to a year in advance. But what they're getting with domestics is they'll often get a lot of bookings on a Wednesday or a Thursday when people look at the weather forecast and they go, oh, cool, we can pop over to the Wairarapa for the weekend. So those ones are a lot more short notice and a lot harder for them to plan. But that's all based on the weather forecast and those events that people hear about. So when they hear about those events, they'll see an upsurge in those bookings.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I've got a comment.
Oh, you got a comment? Absolutely. Go for comments now. Thank
Comments
you.
now, good. I just want to back up Anna's comments around the dark sky. I've literally just shot in from Trends. I've been there for the last 2 days. And Andrew Waddle, who is head of marketing and business operations for Australia, basically said that holidaymakers in Australia are a prominent market and the key focus is ski and snow. Obviously we can't tick that box, but wellness and rejuvenation and stargazing and dark skies. So I strongly advise that what Anna's saying and what Matt's saying and what we are hearing from outside of this table is true around the dark skies. And I think, fast track 5 years, we should be seeing some really awesome economic return from that.
We are our positioning for here in the Wairarapa is our dark sky reserve. So there's only 21 in the world. 2 of them are in New Zealand. Our one is easily the most accessible dark sky in the world. And the other bonus, and I'm going to drum this home because I can constantly say it because I want it to be repeated back to me in the media or anywhere else, is that when Mother Nature is not turning it on, particularly for that night that you'll hear, underneath all of that is all this wonderful, we've got hikes, we've got cycling, we've got wine, we've got food, we've got nice accommodation. There is already an established infrastructure that people can enjoy as opposed to other dark sky reserves that tend to be in the middle of nowhere.
Thank you. Comment?
As long as I can remember, the average visitor's day is 1.9. And it goes back a long, long while.
Yep.
And it just never changes. It's always the ambition to make it change. Is it, Yes, for sure.
I'm constantly looking at that as well and hoping that one day... Actually, it did a couple of times flip over to 2, but that's a random month and whatever time. We also only have, in terms of commercial accommodation that provide data for those statistics, there's only like 31. And I do worry that some of them just press refresh of the data that they've presented, because it's not like back in the day when Stats New Zealand you had to provide the data and it had to be relatively correct. Now it's voluntarily that they provide this data. So I do wonder whether some people just go, in some cases, they just press refresh. That's very cynical of me, and I apologise, but
Never apologise for things.
I just think we've got such a low segment of people that we're researching or taking the numbers from, that it's probably not, the data isn't as strong as somewhere like Wellington that's got greater critical mass, and then the more data or more data points you have will sort of even out any of those sort of massive odd ups and downs, and it makes it a bit more reliable.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? There are none. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Robin.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Got a recommendation.
I'll move.
You'll move. Thank you. Mayor Gary, do I have a seconder? Thank you. Councillor David. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Carried. Next item, 5.4, the audit plan for the annual report year ended 30th of June. Thank you, David. Page 46.
Can we
Defer
that until the
2 o'clock?
audit
2 o'clock?
Yes,
Absolutely.
please. Thank you.
Thank you, remind me. Thank you. So then the next item is our non-financial performance. Quarter.
What page?
That is
73.
73, 5.5. Thank you, Josie. Well done.
Thank you, kia ora, and good afternoon. I wish I could take all the credit for this report. So I have the great pleasure of presenting the Q3 non-performance financial, let me start that again. Non-financial performance data for Q3, and that covers the data of the 1st of January through to the 31st of March. And as I said, it is a good news story. So out of all of the measures that are available to report, we are either on track or we've achieved them. In some cases, we've actually exceeded them. There are actually so many highlights in this report that I feel like I don't be accused of favouritism by picking out one or two, so I might end there and open up for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions?
I do have a few questions.
Thank you.
No, it's the next section. I don't worry about that.
Next section. Thank you, Councillor Craig.
Just a question around wastewater. You've got in it complaints, 53 complaints. What would some of those complaints be? Just blocked drains or?
That is a wonderful question, thank you. Maz, are you able to help me with that one, please?
I don't know specifically, but I imagine they would be blockages or potentially extended periods to repair breaks and things of that nature.
Thank you.
Got my question.
You've got now, thank you.
Yes, thank you. So I see, obviously, yes, we are achieving, and it's a wonderful thing. Does that also, do these targets get reviewed annually? I can't remember, because part of me wonders if we're achieving and overachieving all the time, that can sometimes lead to complacency. So do we need to then increase our targets?
Yes, so
challenge ourselves a little bit to be even better?
Yes, thank you for that question. So these measures and the targets were agreed as part of the long-term plan that was signed off last June.
Yeah.
So we typically review and refresh them every long-term plan cycle.
So not, you don't then do a review annually again? No.
Not unless there's a good reason to.
Yep, no, that's cool. And my other question was just around the library. So we're 11,400 down from last year around visitation. And I know you talked about the Wi-Fi and the device type thing, but my question would be, are we would we survey our users to find out what, because there is actually a decline over the last 5 years, just gradually declining in numbers. So do we survey our users to see why that might be? And I guess my other thought around that is if we're investing in the library and going to put in all this money to make it a greater and better place, do we need to sort of identify, why people may not be coming to the library when they're interested? Or, just get a better data around that?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Already and always doing that. So as part of the thing with the new bill, we are looking at, because you'll see what's reflected there is especially that stuff around people bringing their own devices in. So we're using that to shape what that might look like in the new space. Public Libraries in New Zealand do an annual survey right across the country, so we get comparative data right across New Zealand about the trends, what people are using more, what people are using less. That's actually just relatively recently come through, and I can bring that to council, and that's also informing what services we will look to offer and shape, which ones we would do less of, to make sure that we're actually doing that. And also as part of the work around the library, we have done surveys and conversation with our customers to understand what they value more and what they value less in space.
Yeah, because ideally if we had the new revamped library, we'd want a steady increase, one would imagine, of visitation.
Yeah, and the things that people actually in this area want from the library, right? Providing quality services and things that they want.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Craig, then Councillor Thank you.
We talk about visits, in person, digital, and housebound. Is that us visiting people in their houses?
I believe it is, yes, so it's on a 3-weekly cycle time?
Yeah, so it's when we deliver items out. So people, so typically, I mean, sometimes in private homes, more often in rest homes. And so we offer a service where basically they can send through the tops things they like to read. And then on that rotation, staff will choose items for them, take those out to them, and deliver and take the other ones back. So it's a way of basically making the library accessible to people who can't physically get into the space.
And so that is a service we offer complimentary, or is there a deliver easy?
No, there's no charge for that service like there is for any of our other services in that space. You know, I'd stress the point that it's not a huge part of the service, but it is certainly one that's valued by that demographic, and it's a small chunk of people who can't physically get to the library anymore and don't have people who can go to the library for them. So it's kind of those two pieces of work.
Thank you for the clarification. Thank you. Councillor
For Corin as well. Firstly, that's an interesting service. It's interesting. You know, when you survey users, when you survey the users, they're probably going to support what's already there because they're using it already. Mm-hmm. Do you go beyond that to I don't know how you do it, but look at ways of serving potential users who aren't coming into the library?
Yep, absolutely. So I mean the PLNC, Public Library New Zealand stuff. I mean it typically so it asks a series of questions, and that tends to be more about things that people value more and value less, and they're very much in that survey trying to get to the quality, not just the number, and that's the key to that. But then also in terms of the conversations that Tiffany and the staff have had, we have deliberately tried to understand what people would like, not just whether they like the thing that they're given. So we do constantly want to understand that, because that also helps us shape things that we might stop doing but then start doing that provide best value.
Thank you.
Councillor Brooks, thank you.
To you, Corin. Regarding the archive, we have archive in-person visits and archive digital, of which digital are obviously thousands more than in-person. But also we don't have a comparison on the archive numbers from now to the archive numbers previously. So that's one question. But the other thing is too, we have had talks about, there's archives internationally that only have digital services, and otherwise it's book an appointment, and they're quite rare. So I'd be interested in knowing what your thinking is on that sort of service.
So we don't have any plans to do that at the moment. I guess that's one of those level of service conversations that we would have with council, typically as part of LTP, about where we're going. But we always want to, so we're digitalising more content every day. In particular, we digitalise if somebody requests something, it gets digitised and therefore it's now digitally available. So it helps preserve it, but also makes it more accessible. So we continue to grow that. You're right, there are definitely archives around the world that push very strongly into that much more digital approach. Typically, you put some resourcing in ahead of time, right, to digitalise a lot more to make that available. But we're always looking at what's going on with that view.
I think it's more to the point, if you're open from 9 till 5 every day, and it's a bit like shops, you know, if they're open 7 days doesn't mean they do more business. In the old days, some used to be open 5 and do more business. I was thinking more about hours tailored for the public rather than staff being interrupted all the time by one person and then no one again for a couple of hours and, you know,
Yep, and
time more.
we're a little bit deliberate that, like, so at the moment, right, the archive opens at 1 and it's only open in the afternoon. And that's deliberately so that there's time in the morning when stuff can be done without that interruption. But we also structure it so there's one person, and that's typically Mark, who's at the front of house, which enables, so he's the first point of call, and others would only become engaged if they're not busy on a specific time request.
Yeah.
But we're always, I mean, I suppose the other part of that answer is we're always looking at the service and trying to understand it and then look at what changes or tweaks we might make to actually make it efficient, but also, you know, deliver to people what we need.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you, Councillor. No, it's a member joke. Almost not sure there's an insult or a compliment.
Kia ora. Presentation. The library books that are in the little wee, I suppose those little wee cabinets that are in the street, do you service those as well?
No, I believe that they're community libraries, so members of the public put their books in
Yeah.
and then kind of do a book swap thing, is my understanding. Lovely idea.
Right.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I'm not sure who to ask this one, but I'm going to direct it to the Chief Executive. Well, I'm putting on my professional scepticism here. I mean, these are obviously self-reported numbers. So do you have a person actually critiquing the numbers to say, in fact, there were more complaints than actually reported, or we didn't meet our water standards, but we thought we did? Do you actually have anyone checking that on a random basis, like an internal auditor or anything like that, or do you wait for Audit New Zealand to do that at the end of the year?
Yeah, we normally wait for Audit New Zealand, but I suppose if there's a spike or a change in any of the trends, we certainly look at that. So whether there's seems too good to be true, but I'm very confident that the information provided is accurate. So yeah.
Cool. I mean, to me, right, that I have never seen a result like this, right? So, right, so that's good news, but my professional scepticism isn't allowed to be, right? It's part of my original training, right? Is to say, if it is too good to be true, is it really true, right?
Which one was that again? Sorry for me.
Sorry?
What?
The report.
The report, the whole report. Yeah, I mean, this is, I have never seen a council achieve 100% at an interim stage, which is actually a very good news story. And the team, the Chief Executive should be congratulated. Right?
This shows how good we are at doing things on our own.
Congratulations, team.
That's one way to look at it. It's not the way I would have looked at it.
The way I look at things, Philip.
Are you suggesting that maybe we should review some of the criteria?
There are no suggestions whatsoever. Right? You're reading too much into it. Right?
We need to review the way we review things.
Yeah.
Right?
I think what it means, though, is that when the next long-term plan comes into play, we can review how wonderful we've been and set the bar a little higher.
Well,
The bar's already very high.
yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
Also, you don't want to penalise performance.
Yeah.
That is true.
That's what happens all the time. People meet sales targets and they put them up and up and up.
Yeah.
And salespeople leave because it's like, what's the point?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good job, well done, all round.
I'd just like to add to that is that we're probably at a point where, our staff, we're pretty lean and mean when it comes to staff, and to come up with a report like that with the numbers of staff we've got, I think is quite phenomenal. And when I first read it, it was almost unbelievable. And so I'd like to, and I know we've just had a little bit, but really like to congratulate staff on behalf of council for the work they're doing. It just shows, and that's across so many areas. So we're very, very fortunate for the staff we've got.
Gary, if you want to move the recommendation and also then congratulate the Chief Executive and staff on the performance, right? I think that would be appropriate.
Yes, I would.
And then story in the newspaper tomorrow.
All right. So we've got a movement. Do I have a seconder for that?
Is that?
Yeah.
Oh, Councillor Beeks, I'm waiting for you all jumping. I thought you were jumping. Thank you.
So could we modify the targets
Could we spoil it?
90%.
Can we just move the
Save on-
I'm going to move the recommendation. Right? All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Carried. I think, Councillor Goodwin, we've already had the discussion about moving the targets. To move the targets, it's got to be done through an LTP process. Otherwise, potentially, you're looking, if you change your levels of service, including your targets, you're actually up for an LTP amendment.
No, we'll just carry it forward to the TP process.
Well, that's for the new council to consider. Right?
Thank you. Please.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for that. Next item is our health safety quarterly report. I assume Kane's in the hot seat on this one. Thank you, Kane.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's nice to be back. I wasn't here for the last one, so it's nice to see you all again. Thank you. So, I take the report as read, and everyone's enjoyed what we've put in there this time round.
Always.
Just dropping straight into the 3 key points, as we always do. So, key updates for this quarter: contract audits. We are continuing to advance in that area, which is fantastic. The new digital auditing form is live and in action, and it's doing a great job. Reporting is actually up, and you'll see that in the next quarterly report. That feedback is fed on-site directly to the contractors when those audits take place. We've had no major failings from our contractors to date. A few small cases have been identified and actioned quickly so that they can continue with their business, which is fantastic. Something that we have had is feedback from the contractors that they'd like details of how many audits we are undertaking of them so that they can feed that back to their head offices, etc. So that's great to sort of create that loop as well, improving their business and their reporting. Business improvements. Obviously we have this great tool which we're using, and it's got so much more features that we are currently using, so we're continuing to develop that. One of those is a standard operating procedures library, so that gives our staff on the ground access to those standard operating procedures if they need to review them. If they don't have them locked away or they have any queries, they can look that up. That's a fantastic thing, and that will be a long project as we review all of those as they go into the library as well, because obviously we'll make sure that they're current, up to date and best practice. The second initiative is something we're doing around role competency. So that's dropping all of our known qualifications, etc., into the roles in our Assura platform, and that gives us another record keeping process so that we can keep on top of that, keep our staff compliant, make sure that they're trained and know what they're doing to the best standards as well. And obviously wellbeing is a big focus for us here. Part of that noted in the last report was that we were having some training around advanced communication. You'll see when we get to the reporting side that behaviour issues are still a problem out in the community with aggressive behaviours towards our staff both in and outside of work. So giving our staff that training so that they have skills and strategies to respond to their stresses in a situation as well as post-situation, and resilience techniques so that they can cope and have those mechanisms available to them. That was really well received and was expanded out across the organisation, so not just to our traditional customer service facing teams such as Queen Street, the library, etc., but to our building teams, our roading teams, anyone that's interacting with people in the community, because people see us, council staff member, and they come up with all their grievances at once. Doesn't matter what you're doing. So being able to deal with that and respond to that is fantastic, to just help our staff to continue to perform. Cool. Secondary to that, we've also been working on our internal measures as well. We have an improved return to work process for anyone that has injury. We have staff who have come back from surgeries or incidents, and we are guiding them through that process to make sure that we can get them back and functional as quickly as possible, as well as discussions with ELT and team leaders around our high leave users, so those that are sitting with a very low balance across sick leave, personal leave, having conversations with those people to try and figure out how we can support them, any assistance that we can provide them, so that we can try and reduce that absence across the organisation as well. Cool, and that just drops us into our graphs, but I will let you, well, I know you've read it, so I'll take any questions at this time.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Craig.
Thanks for the report. Around the annual days of leave, I see we're down 100 at the moment compared with last year. Are we anticipating the same large drop down to the quarter ending in June when you see what's been pre-booked, so to speak?
Cool, I will defer that over to Ben, he's the master of leave.
It's normally a quiet quarter, Councillor. I think at this point, when we look at the leave that's been booked in the system at the moment, there was a lot of leave booked over Easter and in the last couple of weeks, but it is always a challenge to make sure people take leave over the winter period. I don't suspect there'll be a drop from last year, but you know, it is a strategy of ours to ensure people are taking leave over the winter break as well. And we do that through regular reporting to ELT around leave balances. Does that answer your question?
Right. So just in terms of order, I've got Councillor Goodwin, Mayor Gary, Councillor Marava, and Stella.
No, I'm just touching my nose.
Okay, cool. Right, thank you. Councillor Goodwin, thank you.
I was just wondering, I wasn't sure if they were having me on or not, but through the consultation process, we had various pop-ups, and there was always 2 or 3 staff there. And I did ask them, because we weren't really overwhelmed with people coming up to us, and they suggested that was for health and safety. They're not
having 2 staff members together?
2 or more, yeah.
Yep, absolutely. We do work in pairs when appropriate. Just helps to create a balance between and possibly change people's opinions of what they're going to talk about.
See, that contrasts a little bit with if you go back to the beginning of the agenda, page 7, and the last audit quarterly report. It says that elected members are deemed officers. So whereas we venture out, seemingly unmolested, all over the place, unaccompanied, there's 2 or 3 staff going out when, those pop-ups, I can't imagine them ever being needed.
Okay, can I ask Ben to answer the question?
We are a PCBU when it comes to, in regards to councillors are a part of our, under the Health and Safety Act,
an officer.
An officer, and we have an obligation to make sure that you're safe.
All I'm saying is that we seem to be safe. I'm not aware of staff not being safe. I do understand in some situations it's different, but those pop-ups, having 2 and 3 staff there for hours and hours and hours, just strikes me as over the top.
Yeah, I think it's more about engagement. That's why we're there, is to listen, so that some of those reports can be framed in a way of receiving feedback from the community. And if there's a number of staff, well, I don't really have an issue with that. I don't, if it's, I think...
Just there wasn't many customers.
Well, the point is there could be many customers, and depending on how controversial the issue is, but, the safety of our staff is paramount, and of elected members too. So if there's, if you're going into an environment where you feel unsafe, or there's potentially a risk, then we'd certainly support elected members in that area. But I don't think you can blur the two together and ask why we had additional people there for a consultation pop up. There may be many reasons for that.
Just questioning the validity of that, like, you know, if you halved it and they were overwhelmed.
1.5
they
stars.
wouldn't.
They come to the airport tonight.
Well, I might have to go just to shut you up there.
All right, thank you. Mayor Gary, thank you.
Kane, obviously all of us around this table have to be concerned when there's any incidents regarding abuse or whatever to staff. 12 seems quite a high number to me. Is there any particular area which is getting worse abuse than others, or is the abuse is greater? Is it like at the Queen Street officer, or is it out in the road, and these people are getting abused? Because I find this, I hate reading this sort of thing, because, I mean, the staff at the end of the day are just doing the best for the community. And a lot of the time they get criticism is probably because of decisions we make around the table. So, and I have my weekly mayoral sessions, which I do on my own, and I have not had in 3 years anybody abuse me at all. So I'm just wondering, is there a particular area, and is there something that we as councillors could do a little bit more to try and help staff in this respect?
I'm not sure if at this stage you would have much influence over it, Gary. It is 12 across the 3 months, so that is pretty steady for us. There are areas which sort of have different areas of flux. At the moment, it would be our animal control and bylaws team are getting quite a lot of heat because they're obviously interacting with public in quite highly emotive situations. We do get some across the customer service areas like the library or Queen Street, but they've actually tempered down quite a lot in the last 6 months. But yeah, like I said, that bylaws area and animal control is quite high at the moment. So that's where it's at this time. But we monitor it to the best of our knowledge, so we can keep an eye on it, and if we need to change any process, we can do that.
And I take it that if something gets out of hand, the police do get involved?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
I too was going to bring that point up about the abuse that we're having to face, and I'm very sorry that you're having to face that. I also was going to ask what sort of things seem to be more controversial, and you've answered that, saying dogs and something else.
Dogs, noise complaints.
Yeah, that's
basically.
So that's what my question was about. But I also have a question from page 99. In our previous Board of Risk and Finance, Board of Risk and Finance, the chair asked about any people over 50 days with leave. Could that be reported on? And I take it from the graph that it only goes to 39. Would that be true? There's no one over 50.
No, so I can answer that, Kate.
Yes, absolutely, please.
So the report and paper is purely focused on employees who have got 25 days or more. That's not the quantity. That's the amount of people who have got 25 days or more balance. We did take on the feedback from the chair around providing additional reporting for employees who have 50 days or over. And when we looked at the numbers, it seemed it was quite a low number, and we wanted to engage with conversations with the individuals involved in that. So we felt reporting that at a public space wouldn't have been a great space to do when we were engaging with them directly. Saying that, we have had a really good success rate from last report. We've moved from 9 people who are over the 50 days to now we've got 5, which is really good outcome. But as I said earlier, we really do need to pivot over these winter months to ensure that we don't creep up again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Any other questions? I've got two. Right. One is that we've talked about in terms of these abusive customers, for want of a better word. Do you think, right, we're actually becoming too tolerant of people going beyond what they should have because it's becoming normalised, or do you think we're actually taking an appropriate line? First question.
I think as an organisation we are taking the appropriate line. Those teams that are in those situations have a line in the sand, using those external organisations such as New Zealand Police to enforce things. They're not walking away from them, they're making sure that they're appropriately dealt with.
Thank you. And my second question is, thanks for the report on the audits, sort of close to my heart, right? And what would be useful, right, would be, in your commentary you talked about the number of, there were a few that actually had minor issues. If that could be in the commentary, that would be invaluable.
What those minor issues are?
You will not, no. But the fact that we did however many audits you did, right, of which, X number passed with no issues, 5 had minor issues which were resolved, and there was one that we needed to follow up on. That then actually, to me, is just saying that we're actually following up on those that had major issues, or there were no major issues identified. That would be really positive. Thank you.
No problem.
And that would actually then close the loop for me. Thank you very much. Any further?
Yes. I've just got a quick one with regard to contracts to contractors from a council point of view. In light of what happened in Ekatahuna the other day with a motorbike, if, for example, they're doing a contract in town on roading and the road capsizes, is the contract, and someone got, unfortunately, someone got killed, is that the contractor at fault, or could work and safety also have a crack at council at all?
That would depend on the investigation, I believe. So
the council, even if they let a contract, they're still liable to a degree?
Potentially, yes. We have a shared responsibility as a PCBU.
Can I provide a little bit of legal case?
Yep.
Auckland Council, this is what keeps me awake, Auckland Council let a rubbish collection contract. As part of that contract, the contractor was supposed to keep their vehicles in a roadworthy state. There was a rubbish truck that lost control, and very unfortunately a young girl was killed. The Auckland Council was held partially liable because it had no process for checking up on that contractor to see if they actually maintained their vehicle. If the vehicle had been maintained, the brakes would not have failed. So there is a cause and effect, right? And that's where I'm really hot to trot. So if there is no process, we're in the gun. The issue is providing we've actually got a process, and there was we have done, we're doing reasonable number of audits, right, for the types of risks, then it's still our responsibility, but we have actually, correct me if I'm wrong, Ben, we have actually achieved our responsibility under the Health and Safety Act. And that's the test.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that. I mean, we've always, in our narrative, said that contractor workforce is our biggest risk.
Yes.
And it is a big liability for us, and it does keep, if I was thinking of anything around our workforce, that would be the one that would keep me up at night. And that's why we've really had a real pointed focus around the auditing process, the ensuring that when we're renewing contract for services with our big suppliers, that we have health and safety measures in there. So I would think that we've still got quite a bit of work to do to ensure that we are taking all reasonable steps. So it is a bit of a journey. So it is still a significant risk.
I was just going to comment on that. What I have seen that might be helpful on that, I have one council that actually had their audits based on the risk profile of the contract. So they were doing more audits in the high-risk areas, right? And actually reporting that back to the committee.
I had a comment.
Oh, yeah, you have two comments, that's fine.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
I just got a comment. The reason I asked it in part two is a young man got killed in a bike accident on a farm.
Yep.
The bike had been checked out regularly for safety.
Yep.
He'd been told not to go to that area. He had cannabis in his system, and it still cost the farmer $75,000.
Yep.
So it makes you think.
Oh, absolutely makes you think. Yep.
My comment was, thank you for your report, Kane, but also congratulations on your contractor engagement and also reducing the excessive leave balances. Terrific.
Thank you. Any other comments? I have actually forwarded Kane's details to another councillor and know that they've reached out to you yet.
They have not. I'm waiting for that job offer.
Not a job offer. I do not support transfer of staff from one organisation to another. All right. So we've got a recommendation there. Do I have on page 95? Do I have a mover? You'll move. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Bex. All those in favour, please say aye. Right, now we've got Karen Young online, I think. You there, Karen? So we're going now back. We're going now back to the audit plan on page 46, item 5.4. Right. So David, do you want to lead, or do you want Karen to?
I'll just introduce it. I suppose the introductory part is that the council requires an audit under legislation. The Local Government Act requires the council's annual report to be audited. And Audit New Zealand are appointed by the Office of the Auditor General as the auditor of Masterton District Council. The plan that we have in front of us today is to achieve an audit by the statutory deadline, which is 4 months after the balance date. So by the end of October, we need to have adopted an audited set of accounts and an annual report, which is more than just the accounts, it's the financial and non-financial performance. In the plan, Karen set out the focus that they will have this year, which is around asset valuations, impairment of our assets, and the capitalisation criteria of what we call assets and what we call operating. Service performance information, which you've had the report on today, the non-financial performance measures, and water reform, and what the council's doing, where we're at, what the implications are of the water reform decisions on the going concern of the organisation, and our compliance with the legislation that we're given by the government, which is progressive. It seems that there's always another piece of legislation that's in front of Parliament that is giving councils more instruction on what we're doing with local water done well. And the last thing I was going to say was the annual report adoption will be after the election. So the ability to achieve an audited annual report before the election date isn't within our capability. It takes us the full time of 4 months to get it prepared, get it audited, and the election cycle doesn't always match with that, and in this case it won't. So the adoption date of the 29th of October will be the first meeting of the newly elected council. And that's been the case every election year I've been involved in this. So hand it over to Karen if she has some commentary about the audit plan.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you. I take the audit plan as read. There are fair value assessments to be done on property, plant and equipment this year. That is an area which we encourage the council to complete early, because the accounting and auditing standards on review of estimates can get a little tricky when applied to fair value assessments of property, plant, equipment. And so, we're happy to review those assessments and work with management on them, but please do not leave them too late. There are other areas around service performance information. So, a couple of years ago, the performance reporting standard on performance reporting was introduced. So that is a standard for preparers of the annual report. Following the introduction of that preparer standard and auditing standards being introduced, we're of the view that council's well placed and reports well on its service performance information. The service performance auditing standard requires auditors to focus on measurement methods and disclosures, and encouraging the entity to improve how that is disclosed in the annual report. So we'll work with the council early on that, so it has an opportunity to make those improvements required this year. They're probably the two areas I'd like to highlight. I'm more than happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Questions for either Karen or David? Councillor Goodwin.
Can you just describe it? I don't fully understand what the integrity self-assessment survey, what that is, and when does it come out? And I'll ask the second part after that.
Okay, so the Office of Auditor General has been working on publications around integrity, and it's just released further information in addition to the integrity framework which it's provided. So this questionnaire is not part of the audit, but we've taken an opportunity to put it in the audit plan, so governors of the organisation are aware that we will provide and make this request of the council. So it's a self-assessment in that hopefully it provides us with some information, but hopefully it is useful for the council too, as it goes through the queries and thinks about them.
What sort of thing is it talking about?
Oh, look, it's about policies, procedures, conduct, training on things like related parties. It's around the control environment.
Answer your question, Councillor Goodwin.
Yep. The second part is down on page 64. When I look at material measures,
yes.
For instance, the percentage of sealed road network that is resurfaced.
Yes.
I understand that NZTA have a target for 6 to 9% or something, 9%, and that we're achieving between 5 and 7%, call it 6. What's materiality? Why is it 8%?
Okay, so materiality, similar to financial materiality. So if you're reporting 50% and our work says it's say 56%, that's within our maturity threshold, so we will let the council know what we've found and provide them with our calculation. But if the council does not wish to adjust, it is deemed immaterial and doesn't have an impact on the audit opinion. That's only the case if it doesn't make it, if the misstatement that you've got makes no difference in terms of whether you have achieved or not achieved the measure. So I read with great delight that based on your third quarterly report, you've achieved your performance measures, all of them. So if we audit this measure and we found that you've not achieved this, the materiality is 1%. It becomes material if you've said you've achieved it, but in fact you haven't. So we will ask the council to adjust if that is the case.
Well, clearly on that Roden one, our performance measure is clearly different to NZTA's, and that we're not achieving that. And the Auditor General on a recent Zoom thing mentioned that they're going to be looking at those councils that are underperforming on those NZTA targets of 2% rehabilitation and 9% resurfacing. So I just...
The council sets its own targets based on the budgets that it can produce in terms of the quantity of work that can be delivered with the funding that's available. NZTA has some targets of what a good percentage would be for a local roads expenditure on rehabilitation and reseals. And the materiality that Karen's talking about in this document is how far away we are from achieving the target that we set ourselves, not NZTA's target.
Yes, that's correct. So the targets you are reporting against are those that you have in your long-term plan that you adopted last year. And NZTA may have their own targets, and if the Auditor General is talking about auditing against NZTA target, that will be the subject of a performance audit, which it may have included in its annual plan. So that's different from an annual report audit, whereby we audit your achievement against the target you have set yourselves. And that's because Council has already determined, based on consultation on the long-term plan, what your community wants and is prepared to fund. Essentially, it's a level of service that they're, comfortable with.
Can I also just help there? That's a target on average, right? Now we looked at MAS here, right? Some years you might actually do more rehabilitation because of the state of your roads, and other years you might actually do less, right? That's right. And the same with reseals because of the timing, right? So it's an average. It's not a mandatory measure like the waters. You don't, NZTA are not demanding you do 2% or 8% or whatever, right? That is their assessment of what should be done. It's up to council, and as Karen has already talked about, it's up to consultation and disclosure of why you're doing what you're doing. Right? It's not a bad...
No, but I raise it because of, I don't know, a few weeks ago, for all New Zealand, the Auditor General had an audit Zoom thing that we could plug into, which I did. And I raised our year-on-year underperformance on NZTA, and he said that they were going to look at it. So I just wanted to sort of get a feel for what does the audit suggest.
It's not underperformance.
So the issue is, I think we're talking cross purposes, it's not an audit as part of this audit, right? What Karen has talked about is generally the Auditor General does these performance audits and say how well are councils doing across the sector in this area. And they will do a deep dive and understand why some councils are doing less and some councils are doing more. And overall, is there a problem or not for the sector? That's what the audit is about. It's not a technical issue of complied. It's a, as Karen said, it's a performance. I would say it's a performance assessment rather than a formal audit. Right? But it's undertaken by the Auditor General as part of their wider mandate.
And also too, we've had this discussion before because as Kane rightly said as the roading manager, what we do is based on the budgets that we have, the contract availability, plus also the season and a number of mitigating factors. So we're not actually underperforming. What NZTA is saying, this is a guideline.
That's right, and you know, our elected members, you all make decisions based on the information we provide you around the condition of the assets and so forth, and you may have to make some trade-offs, and trade-offs are made where we cannot afford to achieve the guideline KPIs.
Thank you.
And NZTA do audit our roading performance also, both process and delivery.
Yes. Kind of two-yearly cycle. Right. Councillor Mulder, thank you.
Thank you, Karen. On page 57, you talk about a risk pool. I'm sorry, maybe I wasn't paying attention or don't, but I don't know what a risk pool is.
Risk pool?
So risk pool is a mutual insurance fund which the council belongs to as a result of a case which Napier City Council won against risk pool. Risk pool have a liability which it is seeking to fund from its shareholders.
And we are shareholders. Are we?
Yeah. You're a member of a mutual fund, yes. So it's like being a shareholder, and they are looking to councils to fund that liability.
So 12.9 million divided amongst the shareholders, is that right?
It is, however, it's a bit more complicated than that because the implication of Napier City Council winning the case means that other councils who have the issue may now approach risk pool for the same matter. It affects it's with a tightness issue. So previously, when it went through the courts, it was determined that you couldn't have mixed cases, and it clearly had to relate to a certain defect. But as a result of Napier City Council winning the higher court case, it's determined that it can be a mixture of defects. The risk pool does not fund for weather tightness issues, but in Napier's case, it wasn't just isolated to weather tightness issues, and it was determined that they could claim from risk pool when there was a mixed a situation whereby it wasn't just weather tightness or not weather tightness alone. It was what they call a mixed claim. So that is different from previous cases. And so it's basically opened it up for future claims by councils to risk pool, which will be needed to be funded by member councils.
Or the London insurance market, who are the reinsurers,
Yes.
and
Yes.
risk pool is working on getting the reinsurers to fund those losses before the member councils. But it's quite a complicated legal process.
Very complicated. Right?
Thank you.
Can I just clarify, the reason you've raised it is there is a potential for contingent liability in the financial statements that will need to be considered by council. And being a contingent liability, the auditors will actually need to make an assessment. Have we actually put aside enough to have an adequate disclosure over that contingent liability? That's what it is, right?
That's right, Chair. Or it could be an actual liability.
That's the thing.
It actually could be an actual liability as well.
Yeah, but it can't be quantified until risk pool have settled their case with the London insurers, and also work their way through whether there's valid claims from those councils who have mixed insurance claims between structural and weather tightness.
Can you give a very broad, I mean, are we talking, 10,000, a million?
Can I just also, because I've been working with some of the insurers on this, right? We've had some discussions on that yet, right? The issue is that the claim was proportional. Say, just to make it easy on my brain, say there was a weather tightness claim for $100 million, right? There was a claim on Napier for $100 million. I know it wasn't that, but they said 50% of it related to weather tightness. So that's the bit that the council have to pay and couldn't get insurance for. But there was 50% related to other defects, and because it wasn't weather tightness, the council was successful going to the Supreme Court and challenging risk pool's denial of that. They said, yes, risk pool is liable because it wasn't weather tightness, which wasn't excluded from the policy. Okay? So there's only one case. So what now is happening, as David has said, is now risk pool have gone to the reinsurer to ask, well, hold on, we actually have insurance for these other defects. Can you pay us? And there's some delicate negotiations happening at the moment, right, subject to legal, right? But furthermore, what Karen has said is, if Napier were successful, are there other councils out there, which we don't know of, that had been declined from risk pool when there was, say, 80% related to weather tightness and 20% for other defects? They could go now back to risk pool and ask for their 20%. It's a real can.
There's many.
There's many. It's a huge can of worms. Okay. So what this is saying is we can't quantify it at the moment, but we need to recognise there is a potential for councils across the country to make a contribution back to risk pool to cover those payouts.
It takes several years to...
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And it's winding down.
Oh.
It's winding down.
So risk pool are progressively winding down their operation, right?
So it means that opting out.
They're not an active insurer and haven't been since 2018, but these are historic cases, and so they're still trying to settle the historic cases, and the obligation remains on us as a member of the mutual fund to continue to meet their shortfall.
Thank you.
Complicated.
Welcome. It's a complicated case because why councils haven't all jumped on it is some of them need to look back, and so a number of councils, you can imagine, are probably doing some work in-house or engaging lawyers and doing a kind of cost-benefit of making a claim.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Any more questions?
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for that, Karen. Thank you for providing insights. So if we go to the recommendation.
Welcome.
Thanks, Karen.
All right, we go to the recommendation on page 48. We've reviewed it, I think, basically that the audit committee just endorses the audit plan for the year ended 30th of June 25. We've done the review. So I'm happy to move. Do I have a seconder? Thanks, Councillor Beeks. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against carried. Thank you. Karen again. So
Thank you, everyone.
we go down to item 5.7, page 105, our building and planning update. Thank you, Karen. Another Karen.
Another Karen who's handing over again to Shane and Christine just to come on.
Thank you. Thank you.
Or to take us through any highlights if you would like to do so.
Yeah, take your report as read. Read.
Thanks. Any questions on that? Activity is looking, I suppose, similar to not last year, but the year before in terms of numbers. So there is an increase because last year was down. This year it is up a little. Put a little bit more detail in there around the application types as well, certificate acceptance, which we haven't reported on before to this committee. So that's effectively where people have done illegal building work and apply to us for certificates. So we've put that in there. We do have a few of them come through. And also have what we call discretion exemptions that we put through as well. So that's where it's determined the building work's low risk, so people can apply to council and say, we'd like to exempt that from the need for a building consent. Things that fall under that are things like bridges, for instance, so they're fully engineered. You say, well, what's the risk there? It's pretty low. And obviously with those bridges, when they construct them, the engineers review them. When they're finished, the engineers review them as well. So we're saying work like that, and this is following MB's guidance. So it's not just something we've dreamed up. It is following MB's guidance around that too. This kind of work, nature work, we can actually exempt it and not require a consent for it. If you looked over the charts, you'd see, yep, the activity is just rising a little, which is encouraging. Yep. In terms of, I've also stuck a section in there around legislative change. You probably would have all heard the government talking about it. It probably have a little bit of an impact on us in terms of plumbing and drainage inspections when that goes live. It's pretty minor though, because it is restricted to simple residential work, and the government haven't yet defined what simple residential work is. But to be honest, any simple residential work isn't that simple anymore. It's reasonably complex, to be honest, and the information required around it is quite significant. We've kind of been pondering that as a team, thinking, what does that mean? Will they still need to submit the designs and the building consent, even though it doesn't need inspected? All of that will probably come clear in regulations when the government punch them out. There's currently stuff that gas fitting work and other electrical work, there might be a minimal amount of detail of that in building consents, but not a lot. So kind of waiting to see what the government's got to say on that in terms of the regulations. You would have seen also the large volume builders are also in the future not going to require building consents for doing their stuff. We are guessing with the granny flats, which we've also got in there, the granny flats are saying that people still have to apply to the council for a PIM. So they still have to come to us, and we have to tell them all the information that we know about that property that may affect their building. We're guessing they'll apply that to the large volume builders as well, that while they don't need a consent, they still need to apply to us for the information on the properties, and that will cause the other triggers for our other regulatory processes that we can call on that need to be actioned at that point. And then down to inspection times. Yep, the government's saying they're going to measure all the councils to ensure that it's all done in 3 working days. So they'll embed that in the accreditation regulations, is what they've told us. So when we get our biannual assessment, they will come and have a look at what those time frames are. And Yep, just a note on that too, back up to accreditation, we have had full clearance from IANZ in our last November's audit. So good to get that under our belt. I was talking to Kim about it, I said our next target is, often councils go, if we get 2 or 3, that's okay. I said to Kim, our next target is 0, so that's what we're going to gun for. We don't want any findings in our next audit, so we're going to work hard to try and achieve that. Any questions?
Thank you. Got Councillor Beeks.
Yeah, thanks, Shane. Just a question on that self-certifying, and you've expanded a little bit on it anyway. When do you think that'll take effect? And will that free up staff time, but also will it be a loss of revenue to council?
Will it free up? It'll free up a little bit of time, a little bit of our processing time. We won't need to undertake those inspections anymore. Our staff are multidisciplined, so they do building and plumbing and drainage. For some councils that will be a large impact, like Wellington, I think we had about, would have been 8 or 9 inspectors there, and all they did is plumbing and drainage. So for the
their
bigger
jobs
councils,
will be redundant, won't they, in effect?
for the simple residential, and that's why we've got to be careful here, although you can see the government slowly extending this over the years if it's successful. Yeah.
Yeah. And my other question was, they've got a turnaround there of 3 days. What is working days? What is it now?
We go from anywhere from a day to about 4 days. It just depends on the volume and what comes through.
So that won't put any undue pressure, extra pressure on the staff?
Hopefully not.
Okay.
Yes, it'll have an impact. I suppose it goes with the industry, right? When the industry is really busy, it gets really hard to meet all those time frames. So that's when the pressure would come on. But at the moment, yes.
So I guess the crux is, what does simple residential building mean?
Yes. Yes.
To find out.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Councillor Stella, then I've got Councillor Craig, and then I've got the Mayor.
Just 2 questions. So yeah, repeating on what Bex just said around a fee. Obviously, one would hope that we will be losing a small amount of revenue, I'm guessing, but the PIN may come with a fee, so that'll be interesting to see what happens there. But secondly, around the liability. So the likes of the certifying large volume builders and these plumbers and drain layers, hopefully they outline it very clearly that the liability of that work lies solely on the person doing the work, and there's no little loophole that will feed it back to council.
We're fascinated to watch it, because what all these guys do at the moment, when they finish, they want the code compliance certificate, so they give it to the bank to release the money. So there's a whole lot of controls in place.
Yeah.
How does that work when there's no code compliance certificate off us?
I guess a win would be if I was to put a granny flat at the back of my property, I would expect that my value of property would go up, therefore my rates may also go up a little bit in cost. More revenue in that.
It's resharing the risk. I don't have an answer for David, it's resharing. But my risk is similar to yours, but the question I have is, if we don't, now when you put a building consent in, you've got to guess the value, which then helps the QV update their values, helps them. If we don't know about a granny flat, how do we actually, well, we've got a PIN, right? So our processes in updating QV are going to have to change dramatically to take account of all those minor buildings.
Because that QV only value the property's improvements if they get notification from the council that the CCC's finished.
Yes.
And how are we going to check that they're all being built to code? Are they double glazed? Are
I'm
they?
saying we don't need to, because the builders can do it themselves. But we also
I know, but
we charge rates on a separately used or inhabited portion of a property. So if there's a granny flat and there's a separately used, fully occupiable, we want to charge 2 sets of uniform charges on that property in our rating policy. We don't know about it if we haven't.
Right.
Some sort of notification.
It's going to be interesting to see what kind of controls the government puts around it to wrap these issues together. I suppose the PIM, if someone's applying for that, then we're highly interested in that. But you would kind of sit and wait. Do we sit and wait until they're finished? Not sure. Do they have to give us a completion certificate? Because that was proposed way back in 2012 that we moved to that kind of regime. They might pick and piece out of all the bits and pieces that they've got on the fly at the moment.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Crowe.
Just one comment on that. those questions were put to Minister Pink at a discussion about 3 or 4 months ago, where he was asked, who does the ultimate liability lie with? I suggested at that meeting it was always going to be council. He was, I wouldn't have said his answers were giving me confidence that the government had that under control. So I'll be very interested to hear that goes going forward. So moving on, building consents, my little pet subject. I see we had 53 rejected. Do we know the value of those rejections and possibly the fee income that we have missed out on by rejecting those?
I don't have that. I can look it up, and those rejections doesn't mean they don't get relodged again. So,
but are they relaunched at the customer's request, or do we every now and then go back and say, hey, we haven't heard from you for a while, is there something we can do?
Often what happens is when we reject them, it's because there's a lack of information. It's quite critical. They often relodge again. So it's not that we've accepted it in and charged them for accepting it in and all their fees. It actually is sitting there. So it's through our vetting process we go, is all the information here in this application? Does it look like it's there? And if it's missing, then we reject it back out. So it's not even a building consent at that point. We're just pushing it back out.
Can I just ask, I've just got a quick question on that. So in terms of your stats, because you haven't accepted it, you haven't started processing it, correct?
That's correct.
So it's not actually
It's not on
accepted.
the 21-day cycle.
Right? It hasn't started on the 20-day cycle.
No. So we have...
Carry on. I just had
just one other question. There was a small court case a few months ago. Have we received a possible consent or building consent for a new hospital or remediation of faults that we were held to be blamed for?
Nothing.
So we have no idea where the money has gone from this court case?
No.
Thank you.
Mayor Gary.
Page 109 on the swimming pools. I just found it a bit interesting. There's 176 pools that have been inspected and 41 have been made non-compliant. That seems quite a big number. Is that fencing?
Yep.
Mainly just fencing?
It's mainly, it would be all to do with fencing, yeah. So we go out to have a look at the fence is actually what we're looking at.
Yeah.
Does it comply, does it not? The rules are reasonably rigid. There's a little bit of transitional issues around between they made changes in 2017, but we're just measuring it to effectively. The Building Act provides a basis as well. It says here's a minimum measurement, so we go back to that and say, well, this is what it says.
And this is to do with safety?
Yes.
Or what purported to be safety?
Yes.
Councillor David.
I've got a concern about the granny flats. There's a lot of houses being sold and moved and that one, and several houses being put on that site. I'm just worried about the infrastructure, the size of the infrastructure being able to handle the wastewater that's going through it.
That is a concern, and it kind of the government's taking the control off us in that regard and just overriding local government.
Yep. Any other questions on our building and planning update?
Are there any questions for Christine on planning?
Okay. You got anything? No? Okay, so we've got a recommendation there on move.
Yep.
Move, Mayor Gary, seconded Councillor David. Any further discussion? All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Next item, page 112, 9-month financial report, item 5.8. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Chair. 112. 9 months to date to the end of 31st of March. The overall financial position, we're close to plan. The operating revenue is 4.2% more than planned after 9 months year to date. It's 2.2 million more than we
planned for. That's largely made up from cyclone recovery funding that is more than what we budgeted for. So Simon has successfully got more money out of the government for a range of initiatives in the cyclone recovery area, and they've been applied to the likes of the Whariama Hall upgrade. And so there's a variance from budget, but it's because we didn't budget as much as what we have achieved in income, but there's an offset in the expenditure on the other side. But also the building consent revenue that Shane was just talking about, we are well ahead of plan on building consent income at the moment, and that's also helped to influence that positive variance. In the other operating expenditure, 6.2% above plan, and there's cyclone recovery as part of that. Road repairs from the cyclone that are expenditure, not capital. They were budgeted as capital, but we've had to code them as operating expenditure. That influences that variance from budget because we didn't. It's not in the operating budget. And liability insurance, and that was reported back in the first quarter that the costs of liability insurance are significantly more than what we had budgeted for. One other is the electricity at the recreation centre. From the 1st of November, we have been paying for the electricity at the rec centre and on charging it to Belgravia. There was a changeover in terms of their electricity supply, and the economics of them continuing at a much higher cost than what we could purchase the electricity for meant the council's taken over that electricity, and it's come from the 1st of July, it's come out of the renewed contract with the facilities manager. On the rates requirement statement, 2.5% underspent year to date, which is good, unders and overs. Some of the overs are in the operational water, wastewater, stormwater area, where we're doing more work than we budgeted, and underspends in other areas that offset that. There's a small report there on the debt activity over the last quarter where we've repaid some loans as they've come due from LGFA using pre-funded borrowing, so we borrowed early and used that early borrowing. That's also allowed us to achieve a small differential on interest. We earned more on our interest income for the period we had those extra funds invested than what we paid on the debt. And the capital expenditure report is part of this report. Year to date, 9 months, we're 50% of the expenditure budget for capital. There's a forecast column in that report with the full year predicted to be 88%. That's a number I haven't seen for a very long time, and I'll be very pleased to achieve it. But we've got 3 months to spend quite a lot more money in our capital program. It's underway. The roading reseals, the roading rehab work has been underway, and a lot of it done in April. The airport work is underway as well. And there's a commentary on the variances against those capital items. So happy to take questions on the report.
Councillor Stella and Councillor Holmes.
Thanks, Liv, for your report. And yes, I was going to question when some stormwater service work was going to start happening. It's been submitted.
Stormwater service? Is it the CapEx?
Sorry, yes. Minimal spend today to stormwater upgrade projects, but I know that we have some, so just when that start happening.
You'll see we're overspent in the operating area, and that is 71,000 or 9% overspent year to date. I understand that there's a lot of work being done in stream clearing, so going out and getting the silt out of the crosstown streams that are part of our stormwater network while it's dry, or relatively dry to do that work without making a big mess. and they haven't identified any major capital improvement or renewal work on the existing pipe network for stormwater. There is a budget of 300,000 allowed each year to do work, but Maz, I'm not sure if you have any more information about whether there is a project on the go.
I believe there is one about to be kicked off, but I can't recall the specific detail. 300's not really very much.
No.
That's okay. And my other question was around the youth hub, because I remember on opening we were so proud because it had come in budget, and now this says it hasn't come in budget. What happened there?
No.
Too many.
It is. It's under.
It is under. Is that a wording error?
It's not a wording error there. We had 300,000 last year.
Yep.
We predicted we were going to spend 100 of that by the end of June last year, so we put 200 in this year's budget.
Right.
We didn't spend 100, we spent 14,000 last year. The majority of the spend has been in this year. So if the 300 budget is the budget,
yeah, we're okay.
We've spent 275 and we've got 30,000 from Trust House. So it's even less again.
Oh, that's good, thank you.
Yeah.
Good news, Troy. Another way.
Is this for the... Oh, am I allowed to ask one more question? Is this
So it's another good news story.
And we've got public toilets at the skate park.
Oh, yes.
And
Amazing.
as part of that spend.
Yes. Everyone's very happy
27
about
public toilets.
Damn, I missed the insurance question, doesn't matter.
No, sure, you can circle back.
We haven't got, there's an insurance report.
Oh, is that coming up?
Getting ahead of yourself. Councillor David and Councillor Craig.
When we renegotiated the contract for Morley Park, how much longer was it for? Was it 3 or 4 years?
I think we're still working through
Still
that.
working.
We haven't renewal on Morley Park, only the rec centre.
This is Morley Park's not looking too good, really, to be quite honest, is it?
It's ahead of plan revenue-wise at the moment. Yeah.
What are you looking at, 2008?
They might introduce a swimming feature.
No.
You're in a mood today, aren't you?
That's underspent. That's less rates required than budgeted.
Come on. Okay. Formal council meeting.
Right.
Councillor Craig, thank you.
Okay, so I just want to say it's really good to see that the parking income is up significantly. I think especially the unregistered vehicles. I think that's an excellent initiative by this council.
Yes.
Okay.
Great way
We
to
didn't
make
budget,
some money.
so it is over budget.
Right, any other more non-political questions, please? Factual questions, please? There are no more questions, thank you. David, that 2.5 or 2.7% hit on rates, where's your forecast looking for the year end? Gut feel?
Around 2%.
Around 2%, okay. Overrated by 2%. Councillor Beeks?
I've just got a couple of questions.
Oh, sorry. Keep it.
When is the rec centre business analysis report due, please?
So we actually have a report that we're going to table with the ELT, and that has some of the big work required, the structural work. Then in addition to that, we have a number of minor upgrades, if you like, and we are pushing on with that work between now and the Worlds, and that's sort of smaller, low-scale stuff. So probably in the next month.
Yeah, I'm just interested in having a discussion around the table of the long-term projection for that facility. The other question is the animal shelter on track budget-wise?
As at today, yes it is.
And I just wanted had a question on the unwarranted and unregistered vehicles. Is that due largely to our new rule with car dealers' vehicles alongside Dixon Street, or is it just...
That's me. So it's more general. It's not specifically to do with the car dealers, but it's to do with the fact that we have, since Christmas, started ticketing unwarranted and unregistered vehicles.
Okay, so it's a general upsurge. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? So, not sure who to ask this one, probably go to the higher level, Mr Chief Executive. How confident are you that we're going to achieve your forecast spend of 42 million?
On CapEx.
Sorry?
Yeah, very confident, really, I think. It's, we're on, there's no alarm bells at the moment that would suggest that we wouldn't achieve our capital works program in the forecast.
Yeah, understand. Forecast is good.
But we very rarely ever achieve our forecast of the capital.
Maybe under previous leadership.
Under previous
May
CEs.
well be.
But is
It's all
that
about
not true?
outcomes and delivery now, Councillor.
We generally used to be quite heavily under.
You
we'd struggle.
60 to 70%.
Yes. And what's it looking like this time?
88.
88 of the forecast. Or
88 of the plan.
Oh, 88 of the plan. Right, so you're going to spend the 42, which is 88 of the 47.
How much town hall money's in there?
Yes, that's in there. Community
most of
facilities
it's
forecast
next
is
year.
1 point. Yeah.
No,
No?
Sorry, I don't think the town was incorporated.
No, it's not. What's the 4 point?
We didn't
What's the
budget
4.2?
full spend this year.
What's the 4.2?
That's community facility. No, that was for the HVAC within this building.
Oh, okay.
We're still reviewing that this week. Yeah.
Cool, okay. All right, thank you. All right, so we've got a recommendation that we receive the 9-month-to-date financial report and commentary on page 112. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Craig, seconded. Councillor Stella, any further discussion? All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. It's carried. Next item, 5.9, insurance update, page 122. Take your report as read. David, any key highlights, lowlights?
No. I suppose the highlight is that the indication is that the material damage insurance market is softening, and they've indicated around 10% reduction in premiums that they believe can be achieved in this renewal round. We had our valuations back this week, and we're about 1% increase in their values. So the growth in the building values that we're insuring is very small. So that's another bonus. We should make some savings, and by the time we finalise the annual plan numbers, we will try and build those savings in, and ensure that it's passed on through to the rates increase, or any other extra projects the council might want to add into the annual plan before we finalise it.
We'll take that.
Thank you, Councillor.
So no indication of a change in the liability, professional indemnity premium or cover at this stage, but the offer from Chubb in New Zealand is the insurer at the moment, and they are prepared to continue to offer that insurance to us. The other thing is that in terms of our broker, we use Marsh, and we were grouped in with South Wairarapa and Carterton. South Wairarapa have moved to a different insurance broker, so we're no longer in a group insurance policy arrangement.
Does that lack of regional cooperation, does that cost us a bit? Because
no, it doesn't change what our premiums will be. No.
Okay, and the only premium that I jumped out of me is the stadium pools, 268. It seems, are they inherently dangerous things to insure or something? It seems.
Well, the whole facility is worth $48 million. So that's what the premium translates to based on the replacement value of the facility. And that's what we're insuring.
Oh, okay.
Councillor Craig and Councillor
You
Smith.
know, probably have some similar concerns like that QE2 Park is valued at $30 million.
It's more fields, it's not improvements on it.
Well, there's
I know, but we're insuring grass.
Elizabeth Park has a skate park, it has the Coronation Hall, it has a fernery, a bandstand, it has a cricket grandstand.
A lake?
You go through the asset list, and there's numerous asset structures within that park that if we lost any of them, we would want to replace.
So,
So
David,
we fully insure them.
Keep to the questions. I've got you after Councillor Scott.
And also, I'd probably look at the rural halls for 7.8 million. I see we've got 4 of them that we're not doing anything about. What does that leave? Another 5 rural halls?
I think there's 4 insured and 4 indemnity insurance. And indemnity has to include demolition costs.
It just seems a lot of money for...
The Teneri Hall is relatively valuable. And our assumption, and unless you tell us otherwise, is that that hall would be replaced. So we need to insure it for for replacement value. The community values that asset, therefore the replacement value is what we insure it for. If it burns down tomorrow, the council would have the funds to replace it. The 4 that we are not insuring for full replacement are ones where the council are currently looking at them and saying it's not used enough, we wouldn't replace it. So that's the criteria in terms of full replacement or indemnity.
I've got
Me.
Beck, yeah, I've got Stella, Tim, and then X.
I'm with both Brent and Craig on this. My question is, how many buildings have we lost to fire, earthquake, flood, whatever, over the last 10 years? Because my personal opinion is that I think we're being quite risk adverse on some of these buildings. I don't think all of them should be as insured highly as they are. Yes, there's some in there that I think are very much valid. But, you know, it's on average, this is average, it's $122 a year per ratepayer that they're paying into this. And that to me is a lot of money. So I feel like, are we being too risk adverse? Because I know councils like to be. And could we loosen somewhere is my question. Because it's a lot of money, it's $122 per ratepayer.
I think
there's an opportunity here to dive a little deeper.
So,
not today.
I'm not going to answer the question on behalf of David. I dare not do that. Right? You'll kick me under the table. But I think you're actually raising a valid question. I'm working with a couple of other councils where they have done that exact exercise that you just talked about. What is our risk appetite? Would we actually replace everything if we actually had a catastrophic event? How would we go about it? Now, that's not a 5-minute job. And, you know, you're actually 100% right. What you should, you know, is there an option of saying is, look, if we had a fire, we're not going to lose all our buildings, and is there an alternative way of doing it? Now, that's not a 5-minute exercise, right? No? Yeah, Max will probably lost you, right? Yeah. But
insurers want every asset listed.
I know, David, and to me that's why it's a wider discussion that we can't resolve today. But it's a really good question that we should be asking, and is there some levers we could pull, right? And I don't think any of us in the room are actually qualified to do it. We actually need a process about understanding our risk appetite, understanding the insurance market, how it works, and what are the benefits. Councillor Tam.
Just a bit of a reactive question. So when the cricket pitch was torn up fairly recently, was that covered by this insurance?
No,
it wasn't.
There was no claim for it. It was repaired under the maintenance contract with our contractors.
Why wouldn't that be under insurance if it was deliberate?
We have a $5,000 excess. The cricket pitch as an asset is not insured. If it was a building that was burnt down, it would be. But the cricket block, in terms of damage, is not an asset that we insure. I'm sure of that.
Segues nicely into my question, because there's no mention of hood on here. Is that because we do have a building code?
The terminal was on the list. Sorry, it'll be in
Is
other
it
buildings.
okay. But we've got no insurance that protects Hood as in airport?
We have owners and operators insurance for the airport, so there is a separate policy for airport owners and operators for liability, and that was, we utilised that in the accident that occurred 3 or 4 years ago. We didn't claim on it, but we had advice as to whether we were covered under that if we were party to an action, civil claim. We weren't party to an action in the end, but that's what it's there for. If there's something the council has found fault with our process in terms of the safety of that facility, we can rely on having insurance to cover our legal defence costs.
What if we, though, had an earthquake and the runway was damaged?
I don't think the runway itself as an asset is not insured.
Because I'm just thinking about our resilience, and that's part of the community good for Hood Aerodrome.
Good question. Councillor Craig, a supplementary.
Just a supplementary question, just around the level of insurance we have. Just wondering, is Morley Park insured for flooding?
It's insured. It's insured for material damage, which includes flooding,
but not the grounds.
Thank you.
Right.
So why do we insure the town hall?
So if the town
It's
hall...
the indemnity and demolition.
It's demolition.
Demolition is pretty insignificant, as we've already seen by what we've got in the budget for demolition.
Yeah. So if someone was to light a fire tomorrow, you'd have to demolish it.
And
would you get a new one?
We're getting
No,
it's not. It's not insured for replacement.
Give me those matches.
Councillor Tim?
Just a supplementary question. What have we got in the budget for demolition of the town hall? What is that budget at?
I think it's 3.9 million.
3.9 million to destroy that building.
to demolish it.
And recover materials.
Good money.
To regenerate. A lot of money.
And to answer, was it
Councillor Let's just talked about $120 for a year for insurance, which is high. So it's good that we've got those concerns.
Was it? I'm not sure if it was Councillor Craig or Stella asked how many buildings we've received insurance proceeds on. There've been at least 4 structures at Henley Lake that have been burnt down, whether they be bird viewing hides or platforms, and we've got insurance proceeds on those. We've got insurance proceeds on a fire in the roof structure of the recycling building. And Panama shed was damaged by fire. The roof above the learners' pool and the swimming pool was damaged, and we've got insurance proceeds to repair that. So we do make claims. We do. It is worth having.
Right. Okay.
I suppose the question is, over a length of time, what are we paying premiums and what are we making claims?
You never get your money back.
I think the issue is you're buying with insurance, you're buying the certainty that you're going to have the cash available in the next year only. It's a 1-year transaction, unfortunately. Right? But history of claims is actually quite useful in terms of what your excess should be and your total cover. But that's for another debate. Right? Probably for the new council. Because it takes about a year. It takes a long time. I've done it with a couple of councils, and it takes about 12 months to work through.
And it's not all about excess of 5,000 because at different events they impose a different excess. So earthquakes, for example, is a percentage of the value of the building.
And also, because we've got such a large pool of assets, they already start pricing that into their insurance risk profile with us as well, in terms of our premium. So it's a complex, like our claim against our risk pool.
And I mean, the other thing with insurance, I suppose it's sometimes wider than is here. I mean, our cover has dropped from 300k to 15k somewhere in Yeah.
That's for the liability,
Yeah.
additional indemnity.
And, you know, we're approaching a discussion about protecting Masterton from Waipu floods, which, you know, could, well, in their papers, take out a third of the buildings in Masterton, urban Masterton, which is quite a lot of money and quite devastating. And so that's, you know, I understand the need to back off risk, but I also would quite like to prevent some, just getting in a float for that Waipu scheme.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Okay, can I have a mover for the recommendation on page 122, please? Councillor David, do I have a seconder? Councillor Bex, all those in favour please say aye.
Aye.
I note we've been going 2 hours and 10 minutes. Do we want to do the emergency management risk update for Simon, right? Or do we want a 5-minute break?
5 minute break.
Yeah.
Now, 5 minutes now? Is that okay, Simon?
Of course, because I'm here for both sessions.
5.10, Emergency Management Risk Report, page 127. Thanks, Simon.
Kia ora koutou. So, thank you for allowing me time just to briefly talk to you this afternoon through this report. I'll take it as read and just highlight a couple of areas that I think would be of particular interest to you. One is the After Action Review report that was published last year in July, I think it was. It had 37 recommendations, and of those we have completed 35. They've either been closed or moved into process within the emergency management framework. The last two have been listed in the report and will be closed by the end of June. So I think that's important to note that these reports are being read, are being actioned, and are improving the emergency management framework within the Wairarapa. Another point to note is that the Recovery Office that was set up in July of 2023, and which I've been working as the Recovery Program Lead, Program Manager, we are in the last stages of transitioning out of recovery, and it will formally close at the end of June. Funding received from government, central government, to set up the office and maintain it finishes at the end of June, and we have been working through with a lot of grants, and everything technically should finish on that date or just a few days later, but the funding side of it we are still able to claim through to that date. On the other side, the three councils have agreed to a new emergency management office, a shared office that will now pick up the work of the response side and emergency management side of the Civil Defence Emergency Management for the councils, and the focus will be on working across the three councils and with Remo to continue the work we have been doing to improve the emergency management capability, improve the ability of council workers to respond effectively, and to start professionalising emergency management as part of the work that the council staff are expected to perform as part of their role, and ensuring they get the right training to be able to do that. One of the keys I do want to point out is that we have a controller who is the person responsible during an event. They are the primary person who is managing risk to life, risk to buildings, and ensuring resources are allocated and directed accordingly through the event process. We only had 2 controllers up to June last year. The third had left the organisation. Since then, we've managed to retrain or train up to now we'll have 7 as at the end of June this year. So that's a significant increase and a necessary increase as we do run 24/7 shifts. So everybody's on for 1 week and are on for that whole period. Probably the 2 key things I wanted to cover off. Are there any questions?
Any questions? Councillor Goodwin?
Yeah, the proposal to extend Wider House and make a emergency management place. Have you advanced any talks, with the other 2 councils about their annual contribution to its operating costs just for the term of the loan, just say for 25 years? Is there any agreement being worked on with that? And the other side of it is, I wouldn't know, but watching the geotech drilling, I got a funny feeling that the foundation costs for an IL4 building are going to be a wee bit higher than maybe the budget has allowed, but I wouldn't know. Just wondering if there's any updates on the geotech work and that extra 800,000 that building's going to cost us. Some of it, I suppose, there'll be a couple of offices for us, but a fair bit of it we could say was to be shared that amongst the three councils, I would have thought?
So, Councillor, it's probably out of my remit to answer, so I'm going to pass back to probably Kim on this one. Maz would be the right person, but unfortunately she's left the room. That's part of the wider council discussion. So, Kim, can I pass to you, please?
Yeah, so we haven't had any discussions on the other councils contributing towards capital costs of the new emergency operations centre. At the moment they're contributing towards the labour costs of the emergency manager role.
So not the rent, just the labour.
Yeah, but also the emergency manager, whilst it might be based here a good part of the time, also moves to the other councils too. So it's not just a sole, we have shed desks here where people can move to and from. But
we had talked to you about this before, and you were going to chase them up. I mean, look, even if you only got 2 or 3 million would probably be enough, but I'm just wondering, is that still ongoing?
Well, I want to wait and see where the costs land at the moment on the different design before I can go and approach those councils, so a little bit more information. We're still working through the most efficient way to build a building or to put a building there. Some of the drilling would suggest that the land is contaminated, so we need to consider whether or not we would drill pile or whether I'm not an engineer, but there needs to be other solutions and considerations. I'm meeting next week with a developer to just talk through some of the challenges and see whether there are other solutions maybe before we come back, more affordable solutions.
Has that geotech report come out yet?
I haven't got a copy of it. I'll have to check with Maz whether they,
Because I don't mind seeing it.
Thank you. Councillor Beggs.
Hi, thanks Simon. Just a couple of things. You know your exercise Wairere?
Yes.
That's scheduled for the Thursday, the 15th of May, and we've actually got a hold in our calendars for local water done well submissions on the same date.
So my understanding was at the time we set it up, which was almost 5 months ago, that date was free. So we've continued to work with that date. Yeah. I'd have to work with whoever's doing that, but definitely if the resources are unable to participate in the exercise, we will manage it. We'll just manage it with who we can get in the room at the time.
Yeah, it was more from Mayor's,
yep.
Deputy Mayor's position. But the other thing was, I noticed in your report on this environmental scan on page 156, you said it doesn't reflect a relationship with Māori. So I wanted to know if there are steps in place to address that.
So the environmental report or environmental scan has been completed by REMO, and REMO do have a remit that they are to do the consulting with iwi, and they are without an iwi rep at this point in time, and the new lead for REMO is now going around and talking to all participants, including my understanding is iwi. I would expect them to, they expect to as well. Because part of it is also identifying cultural sites and cultural sites of importance as part of the work that we're doing.
Because I know Joe's brought this up before.
Yep.
And the other thing is congratulations on your new position.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Simon?
I think it's more
a complimentary comment.
Yeah, I would just like to, first of all, talking about the closure of the Recovery Office, to Simon and to Ben and Co, who, as chair of the Wairarapa Governance Board, I've seen it firsthand, the amazing work you guys have done. And the Recovery Office have worked their butts off under real pressure. And so I'd like to congratulate everybody that's been involved with that Recovery Office. And also, just to repeat what Beck said, Simon, to congratulate you on becoming the new lead of the Wairarapa Emergency Management Group. I think that's terrific. You've been a real leader in this whole thing, and the great thing about your appointment is it just continues on. There's going to be no new face having to learn things. You've been there, so well done. I just really do want to say well done.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay. All right, any further questions, comments? So we've got a recommendation there. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Beck, seconded. I'll second. Any further discussion? All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Carried. Thank you, Simon. Don't go far. All right. So can I have a mover? We move into public excluded.
Yeah, I'll move.
Thank you. Seconded, Councillor David. All those in favour, please say aye. Carried. We need to pause.